Okay, class, let's get going then. As we did in the last class, we talked about few things like what is development, how we generally categorize someone as developed, some countries developed or not, what are the basic parameters, like we talked about first, apart from income, what are the other things, like we talked about basic goods, basic necessities that are there. Then we talked about the income criteria that is by World Bank and all. We also talked about sane and different things, and I gave you a broader perspective what we are going to cover in this chapter, right? Now, if you look at your reading, page number 8, you would see that they talk about the widest perspective about the development in general. So what is development in general it is? So when we talk about development economics, it includes economics plus environment plus public plus policies or politics plus any other area that you can think of. Like we talked about the economics. Why economics? Like obviously when we talk about development, we will talk about the growth numbers and all. So economics would be there. When we talk about environment, as I gave you example yesterday also, जब हम दिल्ली के example की बात कर रहे थे, the pollution in Delhi, that is harming your economic well-being also. So environment is also a factor, because in any developed economy, like when we talk about Shanghai, China, so we said that in 2009 there was a huge flood in China, but after that they managed it so well that there is no such incidents in China. Similarly, when we talk about Japan, there was tsunami, and because of tsunami, there were more than 2 lakh people died in around 2004. But after that, there were incidences of tsunami, but casualties were much lower, right? So this is what preparedness they did, and that was through the means of economic development only, right? So development is not generally the development of only those who are lagging behind or those who are behind this poverty line. Development also means developing from where you are actually. So when we talk about, let's say you are from a college, you're college going students. So from a college going students, what we actually aspire to become, we want to join the government, we want to go for higher education, we go for let's say some technical job, or want to get placed better in any company, right? That is development in a broader perspective. So basically it is your economic development, then your environmental development, then public policy, then that when we say public economics. Public economics is what? When we talk about, generally we define it as all those goods which are non-rival and non-excludable are public good, right? So let's talk about the defense. As your economy grow, your defense grow as well, right? As your economy grow, your telecommunication grows as well, your infrastructure grow as well. So here, when if you include infrastructure, like in India, we spend around 11.2 lakh crore rupees for capital expenditure. It is mostly for environmental development. So that is also in your development perspective. When our Prime Minister said about the 7 goals for the development of economy in the yesterday's or day before yesterday's speech, they talked about the different parameters that need to be touched upon for a development of an economy, right? When we say that, let's make America great again, that Trump's phrase that he generally uses. So what is that? So basically at the level that they are right now, they want to go beyond that. ठीक है? So किसी भी लेवल से, किसी भी स्टेज से जब आप ऊपर की तरफ जाते हो, that is your development, right? And that could be in terms of all of these, right? Also, development means both taking the interest of public plus private people, right? अब जैसे मान लो कि ये इंस्टीट्यूशन है, ठीक है? अब यहाँ as an institution, what we aspire to go become bigger, earn higher, reach large masses, right? Large pool of students, help them higher, earn more revenue, right? So the development is there in terms of the helping to the private people as well, right? Similarly, in terms of public we talked about, in terms of goal of your infrastructure development, in terms of growth of your industries, in terms of growth of your well-being, the social capital development, right? So these are all the domains are there in your development economics, right? Then there are, for any economic development, we talk about the economies of scale. What is economies of scale? What is economies of scale in general? So economies of scale, generally what we say, that okay, if you increase your input, how your output is increasing. That is what we talk about in economies of scale generally. So what we actually need is that we should have increasing returns to scale, because then only we would be able to grow, right? If you have diminishing returns, that means your capital are more, or your investment are growing more for the depreciating assets or something like that. So your growth would be stagnant or decreasing, right? So either you want your constant return or increasing return, right? Right, and that would come from what? That would come from your infrastructure development. That would come from what? That would come from your education, healthcare, your sanitation, facilities, right? So all these are the scope of your economic development and development economy per se, right? Then generally when we talk about, so it is the broad perspective it is true for all developed and developing economy, right? Now if we talk about especially the developing economy, so you write characteristics of developing economy. So let's see first. So for any developing economy, what would you see? You will see there is no perfect information. Or first thing is that no perfect information. No perfect competition. No perfect information means, so in a developing economy, what we generally see, there is high inequality in terms of resources. So if you have lesser resources, you will have lower information set as well. As let's say a person from a state like Bihar and a person from state like South, or Karnataka or Bangalore. So from Bangalore, the education is higher in Bangalore and it is least in Bihar. So obviously the information set that a person carries in Bangalore is much higher than that is in Bihar, right? So the information set is different. But in a developed economy, what would we see? The education system is much higher. So their skill development is much higher. So they have relatively much or similar education level, similar skill level, if you compare the same student of, let's say, class 1 or class 5. Or in India or in any developing economy, if you compare two schools, one is private, one is government, you would find that in private schools you will have much higher information than that in the government schools, right? So these are some characteristics. Then there is no perfect competition. What does perfect competition needs? So in our first semester microeconomics, we studied that perfect competition needs perfect information. It needs homogeneous goods. It needs what? Constant return to scale, right? So perfect competition also needs constant return to scale, right? But in a developing economy, the resources are unequally distributed. Resources are unequally distributed. Right? So you can see someone is having more resources, let's say Ambani or Adani, and someone like us having lesser resources, and we are having our thing. Again, when we talk about resource distribution, you can talk about subsistence economy here. So developing economy generally have a subsistence economy, right? So this also called as dualism. When you study it, it was given by different economists like Marxian theory was there, classical theory was there, from your Lewis theory, when you talk about the Lewis theory of development, then Harris-Todaro model, then Ray-Fenest model, that are all based on the dualism. What they say that there are two structures in the society, one having more resources, one are developed, one is lagging, having lesser resources, one is educated, one is less educated. So these are some features of a developing economy. So you write it down. No perfect information, no perfect competition. Right? No perfect information, no perfect competition. Resources are unequally distributed. Then, sorry. The next point you write. Structural changes are taking place. Structural changes are taking place. What does this mean? So, structural changes, okay? What is structural change? So when we say, from here we will talk about two things, structural reform and process reform. That is not there in your book, but we'll see what is that. Structural changes are taking place. Like, we are saying that you must have heard this thing, we will become Viksit Bharat by 2047. What is Viksit Bharat? Why we are talking about this thing? Yes? So basically we want to become developed country. So in a developing country, everything remain like, we want to achieve a certain level of per capita income, we want to achieve a certain level of education, we want to achieve certain level of skilling, we want to achieve certain level of manufacturing growth, services growth, right? So all these things are we actually aspire for, right? We want certain level of sanitation, sanitary condition and all, so that everyone have a decent standard of living, good standard of living that they aspire for in a developed economy, right? So in a developing economy, every time you would see that something is changing, evolving, right? Like less than 5 years ago, there was no new education policy. So you didn't had courses like skill education, SEC, skill enhancement courses, or vocational courses, VAC courses or SEC courses. These courses are introduced in order to prepare you for like the industry ready things, right? So you might have studied that, like with economics, you can talk about entrepreneurship development or entrepreneurship classes you can take, or life skill education you can take. These are some of the SEC or VAC courses that are being introduced. So what is that? Based on the need of any developing economy, based on the need of the like system, you evolve. Let's say that, okay, few years ago we had the change in the tax structures, right? Why tax structure was changed? In order to simplify the economy, in order to simplify for making it more clear, more easy for filing the taxes, for collection of the taxes, and making the economy more formal. उससे होता क्या है, what does that lead to? So अगर तुम टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर को ऐसे बनाओगे कि वो बहुत सिंपल हो, लोगों को इजीली समझ में आ जाए, लोगों को लगे कि उनको कम टैक्स पे करना पड़ रहा है एट लोअर लेवल ऑफ इनकम, तो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लोग टैक्स स्ट्रक्चर में आएंगे, लोगों गवर्नमेंट के पास ज़्यादा टैक्स रेवेन्यू होगा, सो दे वुड बी इन अ बेटर पोजिशन टू इन्वेस्ट दैट मनी फॉर कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर, राइट? तो ये एक स्ट्रक्चर है जो चेंज हो गया जब जीएसटी आया अभी कुछ दिन पहले सितंबर में, लास्ट ईयर सितंबर 2025, जीएसटी के रेट्स में मेजर चेंजेस आए, दैट 5%, 18% एंड 40%, यही रेट्स है अब, ठीक है? तो बहुत सारे गुड्स ऐसा हुआ जो सस्ता हो गया, ठीक है? जो 12% पे था वो 5% पे आ गया, जो कई गुड्स जो 5% पे थे वो जीरो टैक्स स्लैब में आ गए। तो उससे क्या हुआ कि लोगों के पास ज्यादा पैसा हुआ और वो डिस्पोजेबल इनकम जो हम पढ़ते हैं क्लास 12th में, वो उनके पास बढ़ गई। आफ्टर टैक्स इनकम जो उनके पास था वो बढ़ गया। तो ये स्ट्रक्चर था, एक ट्रैक स्ट्रक्चर था इकोनॉमी में जो चेंज हो गया। ठीक है, एनईपी के एग्जाम्पल से तुम समझ सकते हो कि जो एक एजुकेशन स्ट्रक्चर था वो चेंज हो गया, राइट। सो ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर टेकिंग प्लेस, और दीज आर कंटिन्यूअस प्रोसेस इन अ डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी. Okay, these are a feature of developing economy, not a developed economy. In developed economy, they have a fixed system. Let's say when we talk about Canada, you pay a flat tax of 40% and rest is free by the government in terms of education, in terms of transportation, in terms of healthcare. But in a developing economy, you would see that, okay, healthcare is free. But at some places, you would have PPP model, like at the sports injury center in the Safdarjung hospital, you would find that there are places or there are services that are being paid at a minimal charges. So these are all the changes that are there in the developing economy, not in the developed economy. ठीक है, सो ये एक फीचर है तुम्हारा डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी का. ठीक है, अब इसके बाद एक और चीज सोचो कि और क्या चीजें हो सकती है. तो देखो, जिस भी इकोनॉमी में इंफॉर्मेशन परफेक्ट नहीं है, ठीक है, कंपटीशन परफेक्ट नहीं है, तो होगा क्या. सिंस यहाँ पे एक और चीज तुम इसमें इनकॉर्पोरेट कर सकते हो, इंक्रीजिंग पॉपुलेशन. ठीक है, पॉपुलेशन चेंज जो होगा यहाँ पे, डेमोग्राफिक चेंज जो होगा वो जनरली एक्सप्लोजन साइड पे होता है, तो पॉपुलेशन इंक्रीज होता है. ठीक है, एंड दैट इज वाई वी आर सेइंग दैट 2030 तक जो है हमारा पॉपुलेशन भी इंक्रीज होगा, डेमोग्राफिक डिविडेंड हम रीप करेंगे, बिकॉज हमारा जो वर्किंग एज पॉपुलेशन होगा वो ज्यादा होगा. ठीक, तो इंक्रीजिंग पॉपुलेशन इज वन ऑफ द कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स. नाउ अब होगा क्या, यू हैव imperfect information and no perfect competition. In that case, what would happen? इन दोनों के कारण क्या होगा, you would come into a marketplace where the buyer and seller might not reach to a general equilibrium point. Okay, so you write, next point you write, we can have multiple equilibrium in a developing economy. Okay, so because we have imperfect information, because we have imperfect competition, so it might be possible that different set of consumers, different set of buyers are there and interact with different set of sellers, and because of that you would have like different multiple equilibrium taking place in the same economy, right? So we will have multiple equilibrium in the economy, right? So these are some of the characteristic features. Okay, ठीक है. Then you write, next point, the profit motive is derived from self-interest, or family or clan status, देखो, जब हम प्रॉफिट मोटिव की बात करते हैं, तो जब डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी होगा, ठीक है, सिंस देयर इज हायर इनइक्वालिटी और ऐसे भी लोअर लेवल ऑफ इनकम है, तो लोग क्या चाहेंगे, लोग चाहेंगे कि मेरे लिए जो सही है मैं वो करूं और उससे जितना इनकम मैं कमा सकता हूं कमाऊं, राइट? तो ये एक ऐसा है जिसमें कि सोशल वेलफेयर गेट्स कॉम्प्रोमाइज्ड बट पर्सनल इंटरेस्ट गेट डेवलप्ड. ठीक है, तो ये चीजें होती है. तो दीज आर सम कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स फीचर्स. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट आई टॉक्ड अबाउट द डुअलिज्म, राइट? तो यू कैन राइट अबाउट दैट ऑल्सो. यू राइट डुअलिज्म. अगेन दिस इज नॉट पार्ट ऑफ योर रीडिंग बट यू शुड नो दैट. उससे पहले एक बार देखो कि, सॉरी, हाँ, तो उसके बाद देखो कि हमने बात करी स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस की. तो मैंने तुम्हें बोला कि स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म होता है. तो जब भी कोई ऐसा रिफॉर्म, गवर्नमेंट ऐसा लेजिस्लेशन लेके आए, कोई एक्ट लेके आए जिससे स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द इकोनॉमी चेंज हो, दैट इज स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म. लाइक पहले जो था वो डिफरेंट टैक्स स्लैब्स था, उनको चेंज करके गवर्नमेंट जीएसटी लेके आई, ठीक है। तो जीएसटी इज अ स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म जिससे इकोनॉमी का स्ट्रक्चर चेंज होगा। अब देखो, अब तुम बताओ कि स्ट्रक्चरल चेंज जो होगा वो कहां ज्यादा प्रेवलेंट होगा, डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी में और डेवलप्ड इकोनॉमी में? डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी, बिकॉज देर इज मच स्कोप फॉर द स्ट्रक्चरल चेंजेस, right? Because ultimately what we want a structure that provides decent standard of living to all the population, right? Having ease of living, having ease of doing business, having adequate level of education, healthcare, skilling, and proper infrastructure, have this freedom or capability to move towards like to choose whatever you want to choose, whatever you can do, right? As we talked about in the last class also, in the capability approach, and from here only we will take up to capability approach. Okay, so these are the things that you understood, right? Next, just for a point, you write it down, that dualism. So what is dualism? Basically, you have a two society structure, one is developed, one is developing. Here गवर्नमेंट प्लस मार्केट एफिशिएंट होंगे बिकॉज सिस्टम इज डेवलप्ड, तो इंफॉर्मेशन सेट पूरा है, कंपटीशन परफेक्ट है, तो यहां पे गवर्नमेंट प्लस मार्केट दोनों एफिशिएंट हों। हियर इट इज नॉट एफिशिएंट, ठीक है। और इसीलिए यहां पे जो है क्या चाहिए होगा, हमें रेगुलर गवर्नमेंट इंटरवेंशन चाहिए होगा। ठीक है, यहां पे क्या प्रिवेल करेगी, पॉवर्टी एंड इनइक्वालिटी। राइट, यहां पे लेस प्रेवलेंट होगा ये। ठीक, और बताओ और क्या होगा, यहां पे जो इनकम एंड वेल्थ होगा, इनकम एंड वेल्थ वो लोअर होगा। राइट, यहां पे क्या होगा, ये हायर होगा। और क्या पॉइंट हो सकता है बताओ, और देखो यहां पे जो होगा सोशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वेल डेवलप्ड होगा। ठीक है, दिस वुड बी वेल डेवलप्ड हियर, बट हियर इट इज डेवलपिंग। ओके, वन थिंग दैट आई नीड टू आस्क यू, व्हाट इज सोशल कैपिटल? सोशल कैपिटल क्या होता है? No, that is your social resources. So what is social capital? Right, so basically social capital is how the like economic agents, we are talking about the people in general, so we say that economic agent, how they interact, how their bonds are, right? So how the trust with the government, right? So here social capital would be developed also, right? But here it is lagging. Do you trust your government? Sometime yes, sometime no, right? Because social capital is not that developed, so that trust building is not there completely. I'm not saying it's not there at all, but it's not there completely, right? So these are the characteristic features that you would see. Again, what you would find in terms of standard of living, standard of living or ease of living is much higher here, and ease of living would be lower here, right? Write down these points. And then yeah, obviously literacy. So literacy, healthcare, and then other sanitation, all would be higher here, it would be lower here. ठीक है, तो बेसिकली जब हम डुअलिज्म की बात करेंगे तो हम बात करेंगे कि ये चेंजेस हैं, ठीक है, जो दोनों को डिफरेंशिएट करेगा। ठीक है, ठीक है, तो एक ब्रॉड डेफिनेशन चलो हम लोग लिख लेते हैं। ठीक है, डेवलपमेंटल इकोनॉमिक्स का, तो लिखो डेवलपमेंट इकोनॉमिक्स इज कंसर्न्ड विद development economics is concerned with economic, social, political, environmental, economic, social, political, environmental, requirements, environmental requirements for effective and rapid structural transformation and institution building in a society. Economic, social, political environment for institution building in any society, right? So अब देखो इंस्टीट्यूशन क्यों इंपॉर्टेंट है किसी सोसाइटी के लिए. तो देखो जब भी हम डेवलपमेंट की बात करते हैं ना, ठीक है, किसी भी डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमी में, व्हाट अल्टीमेटली हेल्प्स यू इज द इंस्टीट्यूशन. लाइक आज भी अगर बोला जाए क्या तुम्हें पुलिस में भरोसा है, ठीक है, यू मे से नो सर नॉट एट ऑल or not to that extent, but do you have trust in your judiciary? Yes sir, judiciary में भरोसा है, ठीक है, because that institution has developed and has transformed itself in the past few years and proved itself that okay, this institution is efficient, right? Similarly, जब हम skilling की बात करते हैं, are you satisfied with the skilling that you are getting? So at some places you might not be satisfied, but at some places you are satisfied, right? Like you aspire for going for masters in institutions like D School, in institution like JNU, in institution like Ashoka, because those institution has proven record that if you come here, you will get quality education, quality skilling, quality lifestyle, quality of literacy and learning curves as well. So all of these things would help you in what? It will help you deciding where you want to be, where you want to go, and how much growth you want to seek in yourself, right? And that is depending on your institution, right? So institution का वहाँ से रोल important हो जाता है. And ये institution develop कैसे होंगे, क्या ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन चाहिए, तो क्या सोशल, पॉलिटिकल, इकोनॉमिक, ये सारे ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन की रिक्वायर्ड है इन सोसाइटी फॉर द डेवलपमेंट ऑफ दैट इंस्टीट्यूशन, राइट? लाइक क्या तुम्हें डेमोक्रेसी चाहिए क्योंकि इट गिव्स यू फ्रीडम एंड ऑल, ठीक है. तो ये सारी चीजें जो है जब हम डेवलपमेंट में पढ़ते हैं तो इससे हमें ये समझ में आता है ये हमें चाहिए फॉर इंस्टीट्यूशन बिल्डिंग के लिए, राइट? इंस्टीट्यूशन बिल्डिंग क्या करेगा? इंस्टीट्यूशन बिल्डिंग तुम्हें कैपेबिलिटी देगा. कैपेबिलिटी देगा किस सेंस में? ठीक है, कैपेबिलिटी इन टर्म्स ऑफ फ्रीडम, in terms of more choices, in terms of lesser transaction cost, in terms of your removing deprivation, right? In terms of building competence, right? And these all will facilitate your capabilities. And once you have developed this thing, you are actually developed. And this is nothing but your capability approach of Amartya Sen. So you make this diagram and we are moving towards the Sen's approach. गेटिंग दिस थिंग? समझ में आ रहा है? कोई दिक्कत? आसान है अभी तक चीज़ें? देखो चीज़ें यहाँ से थोड़ी सी तुम्हें चीज़ें याद रखनी पड़ेगी, थोड़ी सी चीज़ें तुम्हें समझनी पड़ेगी. तो देखो जो सेन थे उन्होंने बोला ये तुम्हारे बुक में पार्ट नहीं है, उन्होंने बस कैपेबिलिटी डिस्कस करा है और फंक्शनिंग को डिस्कस करा है। तो पहला चीज तुम लिखोगे फंक्शनिंग। ये कैपेबिलिटी समझ में आ गया कि कैसे डेवलप होगा, इंस्टीट्यूशन का रोल क्या है, ये समझ में आ गया सबको। चलो नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो, फंक्शनिंग। It is defined as, functioning is defined as the capacity of people to do something, or efficiently doing what they are doing. So what the people can do and doing, that is your functioning. Should I repeat? So basically functioning is, it enables people to do what they are doing efficiently, or what they can do and what they are doing efficiently, right? So basically there are two things that we are talking about in functioning: what people do. So this is about the present work that they do, and what they can do, what people can do, right? Let's say you're studying here. So you are studying. So what you do, studying. What you can do, that is based on your capability, right? And that is the capability approach. So if I am, or if a society, if a developing economy can enable you through different institution to properly function or enhance your capability to do or can do part, right? That is your functioning. And if the functioning is improving, then it is the capability enhancement, and that is the capability approach. ठीक है? तुम क्या कर सकते हो, ठीक है, इस चीज के लिए जो तुम्हें इंस्टीट्यूशन हेल्प करता है, ऐसा तुम्हें एटमॉस्फेयर मिलता है बाय मीन्स ऑफ फ्रीडम, बाय मीन्स ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी, बाय मीन्स ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शनल कॉस्ट अगर तुम्हारा कम है, ठीक है, बाय मीन्स ऑफ अगर तुम्हारा ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कम है, बाय मीन्स ऑफ तुम्हारी डिप्रिवेशन जो है वो तुमको रिड्यूस किया गया है, रिमूविंग डेप्रिवेशन मीन्स कि जो तुम्हारे इश्यूज हैं उनको कैटर किया गया है, उनको उन पे वर्क करा गया है, ठीक है, तुम्हें कॉम्पिटेंट बनाया गया है, तुम्हें इनेबल किया गया है, ठीक है, तुम्हें रैशनैलिटी सिखाया गया है, तुम्हारे लिए अपॉर्चुनिटी क्रिएट किया गया है. ओके, सो इन द लास्ट पार्ट यू कैन ऑल्सो इंक्लूड अपॉर्चुनिटी पार्ट हियर, creating opportunity. Okay, because this is also important. Okay, so by means of that, ठीक है, अगर तुम्हें अपॉर्चुनिटीज मिल रही है, तुम्हारे जो वीक पॉइंट्स है उस पर वर्क करा जा रहा है, उनको तुम्हारे जैसे मान लो अभी तुम बहुत आसानी से जाते हो कहीं पे भी यूपीआई से पेमेंट करते हो, दैट इज द ट्रांजैक्शन विद जीरो कॉस्ट. अगर उसी पे कॉस्ट लगा दिया जाए, ठीक है, तो वो कॉस्ट फिर तुम्हें बियर करना पड़ेगा, तो तुम हो सकता है कैश पे शिफ्ट करो या कुछ भी और. अभी इस चीज़ पे बात चल रही है वैसे, अगर तुमने न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ा होगा तो, ठीक है. तो ये सारी चीज़ें तुम्हें क्या करेगी, तो बेसिकली तुम्हें केपेबल करती है इन डूइंग सर्टन थिंग्स. ठीक है, आज कोई भी ट्रैवलर निकल जाता है और विदेश घूम के आता है, ठीक है, बिकॉज दे हैव द रुपे डेबिट कार्ड, ठीक है, और रुपे एनेबल यूपीआई पेमेंट्स, ठीक है, एंड यूपीआई हैज लिंकेज विद द अदर कंट्रीज. तो वो तुम्हें ट्रांजैक्शन में इजी ट्रांजैक्शन प्रोवाइड कर रहा है. तो वो क्या हो रहा है, तुम्हारा कैपेबिलिटी इंक्रीज कर रहा है. ठीक है, तो व्हाट इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर दिस इज दैट बेसिकली थ्री थिंग्स दैट यू कैन लिस्ट डाउन इन कैपेबिलिटी अप्रोच. फर्स्ट इज योर रेशनैलिटी, development of rationality. So you write down in functioning, it is most important in capability approach. Which requires reduced or low transaction cost, democratic government, these are 2 points. Third, reduced deprivation, no democrat, then increased rationality, creating opportunity. Okay, so these are required in your capability approach. So only one thing that we added here is the rationality is required. And how would the rationality come? Now your chapter talks about all these factors from where rationality would come and then move to the capability approach directly. They don't talk about these things, but you need to understand this. We talked about low transaction cost, democratic government, deprivation, creating opportunity. All these things are covered to you. Now rationality. What is rationality? When we say a customer is or consumer is rational, right? So when we say that, given the information set, given the choices available, if you are choosing the best, which is optimizing your utility or satisfaction, then you are said to be a rational, right? यही होता है जब हम अपनी satisfaction को maximize करने के लिए ऐसा decision लेते हैं given the information set and the given the choices. कई बार हमारे पास ऐसा होता है 3 choices है, तीनों बेकार है, ठीक है, but we choose one. Like you might have selected some other, or you might wanted to go for some other colleges, but you end up there because you didn't had the choice of going to the better one, right? तो जो तुम्हारे पास 3 choices थी उसमें जो बेस्ट था तुम्हारे पास, तुमने वो चूज करा, right? ऐसा होता है कई बार तुम मार्केट जाते हो, तुम्हें खरीदना होता कुछ चीज, तुम्हें वो नहीं मिला जो तुम्हें चाहिए था, लेकिन गिवन जो तुम्हारे पास है ऑप्शंस, उसमें से तुम एक चूज करते हो. दैट इज रैशनैलिटी जनरली, कि जो तुम्हारे पास गिवन इन्फॉर्मेशन है, गिवन चॉइसेस है, उसमें जो तुम अपना यूटिलिटी मैक्सिमाइज कर पाओगे, दैट इज योर रैशनैलिटी. अब इसके लिए तुम्हें क्या चाहिए होगा? अब इसके लिए तुम्हें चाहिए होगा गुड हेल्थ केयर, गुड एजुकेशन, राइट? वेल कनेक्टेड मार्केट फॉर इंफॉर्मेशन. गुड इंफॉर्मेशन की जगह लिखना वेल कनेक्टेड मार्केट या इंफॉर्मेशन. वेल कनेक्टेड मार्केट. हेल्थ केयर, एजुकेशन, कनेक्टेड मार्केट, स्किल्स चाहिए होंगे तुम्हें, ठीक है? अब मान लो कि यू आर नॉट अ फिश ईटर, ठीक है, और यू डोंट नो व्हाट काइंड ऑफ फिश इज गुड, व्हाट इज नॉट. You, if you go to the fish market, you may end up buying worst one or not that optimal quality, because you are not skilled to choose or pick the right quality, right? Sometimes it happens कि हम सब्जी लेने जाते हैं, ठीक है, और हम अच्छी सब्जी नहीं ले पाते मार्केट से, बिकॉज हमें पता ही नहीं है अच्छी और बुरी क्या है, ठीक है? तो उसके लिए स्किल चाहिए होगा, ठीक है, एंड दैट नीड टू बी ट्रेन्ड इन द सोसाइटी. एंड दैट इज वाई when Sen talk about development, they don't talk about just the economic development by terms of increasing the output and income of the people. It is by increasing all these factors, increasing the social capital, because only if social capital is higher, you will have more rationality, right? If you interact with your friends more, then you would get to know, okay, so these opportunities are there, right? So if you like in few years you would be graduating, and after that you might some of your friend might go for the big 4 companies. If you are connected with them, then only you would get to know, okay, these opportunities are there, or these firms are working in these fields, so similar to this can be done. Okay, so we missed one part in your reading, that is the scope of research in the development. We will talk about that, but you can see, like, based on different geographical region, based on different opportunities, So if you are well connected, you will have more scope of research, right? Like, let's say someone is there in Deloitte. So recently, Deloitte get an contract from the government that look for the scope of revival of all the sugar mills in Bihar, because sugar factories were there in Bihar in the 1970s around. After that, it got because of some unforeseen situations, the factories are now shut down. Government has now said that within a 3 year, came up with a plan so that we could revive those sugar factories. Okay, so all these things are there. If some one of your friend is working there, you could have got that knowledge. Okay, so with this company can work in this field or is working in this field. Now you can have a research question that, okay, so if you go for a research work like in PhD or in your master's dissertation work, okay, so what are the factors that hinder the growth of sugar factory, and what could be the possible solution by Deloitte or other agencies to the government that, okay, these could be done in order to boost the sugar mill or sugar production in Bihar, right? So all these are scope of your development economics, and all these things could be done if all these things you have: skill, education, healthcare, well-connected market, social capital. And from that you will have rationality, which is one of the major part of your capability. Okay? ठीक है यहां तक? बताओ फिर और. ठीक है, तो you got the capability part. Now लिख लिया था इसको? ठीक है. Now you write scope of research in development economics. Scope of research in development economics. Before that you write, before we go to that, you write this thing. Like, okay, so Sen gave 5 things that hinders the functioning. We talked about functioning, and based on that we talked about the capability approach. So Sen said that these functioning or the what people is doing or can do can differ between 2% or in a society or for an economy in general based on 5 factors. So you write 5 factors based on which the functioning may differ. The functioning may differ so first you write personal heterogeneity. So since you are here, so among you there could be difference in the how you do things, how you take things, right? So this is interpersonal disparities that is there, or of difference in what you do generally, right? So based on that we can say that, okay, so these are the factors that differ between 2%, and based on that the functioning would differ, right? Second you write environmental disparities or diversity. Environmental diversity. Someone is in the cleanest city, let's say Indore, and someone is there in Delhi having AQI of 300, let's say. Who would be more healthier? Who would be more capable? The one who is living in the cleanest city, right? So environmental diversity or diversity or differences also play a role in your capability or your functioning. That is your second point. Third you write variation in social climate. Variation in social climate. So what is social climate? Social climate is basically the crimes that you see, the violence that you see, the protests that you see. This is the social climate that you are living with. So, okay, just imagine someone, a student who is growing in a relatively social unrest climate, that okay, protests are going on in the society, crime is high. So in that case, would a person, or let's say would your parents allow you to go outside? No, because crime rate is high, violence against women is high. So this also affects your functioning, right? Next point you write, distribution within a family. Distribution within a family. So this is a characteristic feature of development economics again. Distribution among family. What is that? So, or differentiation between among the families. So you might have seen that in India, or generally in developing economies, it is patriarchal society. Male gets to have higher freedom than female. Obviously, that is going to impact your functioning, right? So that is your differences or distinction among your families. Next point you write, different perspective about rationality. You think over it. Difference in perspective about rationality, right? So the thing is, rationality is itself a subjective concept. What could be rational for you might not be rational for you, and might not be rational for me at all, right? Or what is rational for me might not be rational for you, because it depends. So on what factor it depends? So देखो, like for Akshay sir or for economics, they might take a decision to record a lecture and put it on YouTube at around 8 o'clock, because at that time the viewership is higher. Okay, that might be rational for him. But at the same time, it is not rational for the students to watch YouTube at around 8 o'clock, because that time is peak time for their study. Generally, we say that you should study from 7 to 9, right? But if you are scrolling your YouTube or Instagram, then that is not rational for you. Or let's say that you are suffering from some disturbances, so you are scrolling Instagram for your mental satisfaction, that okay, let's deviate our things from the usual stuff, and then but then again parents come, ठीक है, तो वो क्या बोलेंगे, तुम पढ़ नहीं रहे हो, इंस्टाग्राम चला रहे हो, ठीक है? तो रेशनैलिटी डिफर करता है, समझ रहे हो इस बात को? ठीक है, तो अब जैसे कुछ लोग, जब इंडिया पाकिस्तान ऑपरेशन सिंदूर हो रहा था, कुछ लोग कह रहे थे कि इंडिया पे फुल स्केल वॉर करना चाहिए, पाकिस्तान पे अटैक करना चाहिए, राइट? कुछ लोग कह रहे थे कि नहीं, हमें जो है इस चीज को जल्दी से जल्दी खत्म करना चाहिए, बिकॉज देर आर सिविल कैजुअलिटीज एज वेल एज सोशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर लॉस एज वेल, ठीक है? तो जो ये रेशनैलिटी, जो परसेप्शन डिफरेंस है, बिकॉज ऑफ द रेशनैलिटी, some people can say XYZ party is good, some say it is not good, because rationality differs. और सोचो कि लाइक जैसे अभी जो जेंजी प्रोटेस्ट हुआ, ठीक है, इसमें क्या हुआ? इसमें जो है यूथ टॉक्ड अबाउट देयर डिमांड्स, रिएक्टेड इन अ डिफरेंट वे, ठीक है? वो उनका परसेप्शन था टुवर्ड्स रैशनैलिटी कि चीज़ों को कैसे रखा जा सकता है, ठीक है? पुलिस आ रही है तो राष्ट्रगान चला दिया कि ठीक है, हमें मारेंगे थोड़ी, उनको रुकना ही पड़ेगा, तो उनका वे था, ठीक है? गांधी जी का अपना वे था, ठीक है, कि कोई थप्पड़ मारे तो कोई नहीं, दूसरा गाल भी दे दो, सबका अपना अपना वे था। तो रैशनैलिटी जो है वो पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम के हिसाब से भी चेंज होगी, पर्सन टू पर्सन भी चेंज होगी, तो परसेप्शन अबाउट रैशनैलिटी डिफर्स। समझ में आ गया? ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट यू लिखो, functioning also depends upon मतलब ये नेक्स्ट इसमें इसी में मत लिखना, 6th पॉइंट अलग से पॉइंट लिखो. फंक्शनिंग ऑल्सो डिपेंड्स अपॉन, पहला सोशल कन्वेंशन, दूसरा सोशल कन्वेंशन, पोजीशन ऑफ पर्सन इन फैमिली. अब मान लो अगर तुम छोटे हो घर में तो हो सकता है तुम्हें बहुत लाड प्यार से पाला गया होगा, ठीक है. वही तुम अगर बड़े हो तो हो सकता है तुम पर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज होगी, तो तुम्हारे लिए चीज़ें अलग होगी, ठीक है. व्हाट यू कैन डू, जैसे छोटे वालों को हो सकता है कि उनको ज़्यादा फ्रीडम मिली है तो रात में 10 बजे भी घर से घूम के आ रहे हैं, बट बड़े वालों को ये अलाउड ना हो, ठीक है. तो पोजिशन इन अ फैमिली, ठीक. नेक्स्ट यू राइट presence or absence of festivities, presence or absence of festivities. And 4th point you write physical distance from home and family or relative. Physical distance from home, family or relatives. Like, let's say, so you are from Tamil Nadu, right? Telangana. So you are from Telangana and currently you are in Delhi. So you might not have many friends in Delhi. So you would be less rowdy in Delhi than that would be in your Telangana, right? So that is based on your place. So that is again, so functioning depends upon your point of time. Functioning depends upon the location that you are in. Functioning depends upon how you interact in your family. So these are all the 4 points that I made you write. Okay. Okay. Next you see. Okay, so I said that there are few things that we missed in the development. So you write developmental research varies from wide areas like poverty, inequality, to sustained growth, or high or substantially high income. The research question can be taken. The research questions can be taken from as small thing or as evident thing like poverty to as complex as developing AI ecosystem in the world or AI ecosystem in a developed economy. The field varies. The economic development field varies from economics, geography, economics, geography, classes or income. Economics, geography, classes or income. In economics, we can think of like poverty. So in poverty, if you take economics poverty, why there is poverty at all? Second, why country has low and high income? Is there historical relationship? Is there any historical relationship or other thing that you can think of in terms of inequality or poverty, right? So this was about poverty. You can talk about inequality as well. Why inequality persists? The first question is that. Second, why there is low inequality in some countries and higher in some? Like in yesterday's newspaper, if you have read, it said that around 60% of the market valuation is concentrated in top 5 families, right? So that is why that kind of inequality is there, even though we have the Competition Commission in India, right? Or earlier we used to have MRTP Act. So these are all the things that you study in your development economics. Then we talk about the geography, like why the European countries are developed, why India is not developed, why Asia is not that developed, what is there in MENA countries, that is Middle East and North African countries, right? What is the difference in the Caribbean island, right? So all these are the scope of your development economics. Then class, income, or some dynamic factors. Like you would see that generally what we see: agriculture, industry, and services. If you are less developed, you are consuming the agricultural services more. If you are less developed, means you are on a subsistence level. So what you are eating? The basic minimum cereals. As you grow, you consume the processed food that is from industry. And if you grow, if you have higher level of income, more higher level of income, then what do? You go for services, like someone else is cooking for you, right? Someone is serving you. You're going to the restaurant and eating there. That is, you are consuming the services. So that is, your class varies as your income grows. This you study, right? Then we talked about that, okay, it is low income country, middle income country, and high income countries, right? Every time they jumps a bit, and every time, since now I tell you one thing, like take it as in the form of an example. Let's say 100, 200, and 300. These are the bar of per capita income. Based on that, you are defining the low income country, middle income country, and high income country. If the income of all of these are increasing, let's say it has become 200, it has become, say, 400, and it has become 600. If the scale were the same, this would become middle income country, this would become high income country, right? But on a relative level, they are again the same, just twice of this only. So now if you compare all these three, again it is the least one. Getting this thing? So based on that, you can say that in the development is a relative term, is a relative growth. right? And that is what we study in the class income and dynamic thing. In India, we are saying that, okay, the infrastructure is growing, right? So you would see that the kilometers of the national highway that are built, it has grown up to more than 1 lakh kilometers now, which was earlier used to be less than 20,000 kilometers 30 years ago, right? So this is a developing phenomenon. Still, we are not developed. It is developing thing. So it is a dynamic process. Based on that, you say what is happening in a developing economy, right? So these are some of the characteristic features, or you can say, and what we want to look for in a developing economy is, बार बार घड़ी देखने से टाइम आगे नहीं बढ़ जाएगा, ठीक है? तो what we actually want to see है क्या, देखो, तो हम चाहते हैं कि ये जो बस इनकम ग्रो हो रहा है ना, हम इस चीज़ के ट्रैप को हम नहीं देखें, हम इस ट्रैप को कवर करें एंड हम जो है हायर लेवल ऑफ इनकम पे रीच करें ग्रेजुअली. एक दिन में नहीं होगा, ठीक है, ऑब्वियसली, इसीलिए कोई भी कंट्री एक दिन में डेवलप नहीं हुआ. जैसे सऊदी ही है, उनके पास ऑयल था, तो ऐसा नहीं हुआ कि वो एक दिन में ऑयल से इतना रिच हो गए, ठीक है. और अलग अलग ज्योग्राफीज जो है, जैसे जब हम मीना कंट्री की बात कर रहे थे लास्ट स्लाइड पे, ठीक है, मिडिल ईस्ट एंड नॉर्थ अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज, तो यहाँ पे जो कंट्रीज है वो रिच हैं बाय इन टर्म्स ऑफ मनी, बट उनके पास अदर सोशल रिसोर्सेज नहीं है, ठीक है. यूरोपियन इकोनॉमी की बात जब हम करें तो ऐसा नहीं है यूरोपियन इकोनॉमी में सारे ही इकोनॉमी वेल डेवलप्ड हैं, ठीक है, या फिर उनके पास सारे ही रिसोर्सेज, दे आर स्टिल डिपेंडेंट ऑन रशियन गैस एंड ऑयल, बिकॉज इतनी ठंड होती है कि उनके पास वो फंक्शनिंग नहीं है, कैपेबिलिटी नहीं है कि वो ठंड में सेल्फ सफिशिएंट हो, राइट. दे आर ट्राइंग देयर बेस्ट थिंग, और दैट इज वाई ऑल दीज आर डेवलपिंग. इट्स जस्ट दैट दे हैव कवर्ड द बार ऑफ हाई इनकम कंट्री. इस बार से वो ऊपर है, बस इतना है. बट डेवलपमेंट क्या है? डेवलपमेंट एक ग्रेजुअली इंप्रूविंग और इंक्रीजिंग फेनोमेना है जो कि चलता ही रहेगा, ठीक है. यहां तक क्लियर है? ठीक है, ठीक है, तुम लोग भी 2 मिनट का ब्रेक ले लो, फिर देखते हैं. देखो, एक छोटा सा टॉपिक कवर करते हैं, इसके बाद चीजें आगे बढ़ते हैं. तो एक तो कैपेबिलिटी हो गया, ठीक है. बट देन सेन का जो ये आर्ग्यूमेंट था, ठीक है, कैपेबिलिटी इंप्रूवमेंट होना चाहिए, उससे आया कि चलो ठीक है, कैपेबिलिटी इंप्रूव करोगे तो क्या उससे हैप्पीनेस मिल रही है? तो यहाँ से फिर डिबेट हुआ स्टार्ट कि कैपेबिलिटी वर्सेस डेवलपमेंट, तो डेवलपमेंट वर्सेस हैप्पीनेस, सॉरी, डेवलपमेंट वर्सेस हैप्पीनेस. कि डेवलपमेंट इज दैट द थिंग दैट डेवलपमेंट ओनली मीन्स डेवलपमेंट ऑफ द इकोनॉमी इन टर्म्स ऑफ कैपेबिलिटी. देन इट सेड दैट नो, वी also need to incorporate the happiness of people. Like, okay, you are giving the capability, but if they are not in a position to do the same thing, like, then what? Would that thing give them happiness or not? You don't know. Like, in India, you are having so many of facilities, but still you may find that you are not happy. Like, if you ask a worker that, okay, you are getting the job, you have the money, you can spend it, but are you happy? He may not be happy. So happiness index comes as one of the parameter for development, and Bhutan has adopted the gross national happiness index as their measure of development. And that is why when you go to Bhutan, you would see that happiness is the most prioritized thing there, and government has made certain rules, regulations, so that people remains happy, whether they have the income, certain level of income or not, but they should be happy. Okay, that is the main goal that they have set. So before that, before we go to happiness, there was one economist, that was Sheer. He talked about that, okay, if you want to measure the development of an economy, you can say that whether the economy has poverty, inequality, income growth or not. If it is not there, that is, it is not developing. Okay? Just a second. So, she talked about poverty, inequality, and unemployment. So he said that in a simple indicator of economic growth is that if the poverty is increasing or not, poverty is decreasing or not, inequality is decreasing or not, unemployment is decreasing or not. If these factors are not reducing, it would be not good to say that the economy is developing. Okay. Now you see, like in India, what is happening in the recent time? You would see that poverty has fallen significantly in terms of multi-dimensional poverty index also. The poverty has fallen, or based on the Tendulkar report, the poverty is less than 5% of the total population. Or based on MDPI, based on 2023 report, you would see that 11.2% population is under poverty only. And in multi-dimensional poverty index, you would see there are 13 indicators, 10 indicators, plus 3, that is in India, 13 indicators that is there, and those are inclusive indicators. And if the country is relatively less poor on that indicator, it means it is doing good. But when we talk about inequality, you would find that based on CMIE report, Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy, you would find that top 1% is holding around more than 50% of the resources. Top 10% is holding around 90% of the resources. This is severe poverty, severe inequality that is there in India, right? If you talk about top 5%, it is holding more than 76% of the resources. So it is inequality that is prevailing in the economy, right? So then this is a paradox that, okay, poverty is falling, but what about inequality? If you talk about unemployment, so unemployment has fallen to 3.2% as per labor force participation rate. Okay, so but if you look at those labor who are just the subsistent labor I talked about yesterday also. Like, okay, someone is doing the job, but are they happy doing those jobs? Those number of people are relatively lesser. Those who are happy, because they are not doing the adequate skilled job that they want to do as per their willingness. They are just the part of the labor force market or the workforce, but they are not actually happy. So these are some typical features of a developing economy, that when economy develop, because how we measure the poverty? We measure poverty based on a poverty line defined, right? And yesterday we talked about that, okay, for any government, it is much easier to bring this person here above the poverty line. And that is why in developing economy, you would see the poverty falling rapidly, but not inequality or the unemployment rate. What is required for inequality then? For inequality, what we actually require is your social infrastructure. You need healthcare, you need education, you need skilling, you need institution in terms of judiciary, legislation, in terms of police reforms, right? In order to boost manufacturing, you need intellectual property rights, because if manufacturing is the only one which absorb more people and would provide you more jobs and hence more, again, for services, you need these things, right? And then only you can cater inequality. You need to develop the civic amenities, right? And these are the things that is why role of government become prominent in the developing economies, right? Then comes the unemployment part. If you work for poverty and inequality, unemployment would be taken care of, right? So there is one more term, and with that we would end today. You write trickle down effect. Trickle down effect. This says that, the effect says that, today my spelling is right, so don't worry, spelling is correct. So you write, as an economy grow, the fruit of the growth would automatically would automatically reach towards the lowest strata, would reach towards the lowest strata. ठीक है, ये डेफिनेशन हो गया. चेंज द पैराग्राफ एंड राइट. Change the paragraph and write. However, trickle down effect is not generally seen in developing economy, because of lack of a strong institution second, social infrastructure. Third, social capital. Fourth, civic amenities. Fifth, poor sanitation. Sixth, poor health and education. ठीक है. Because of all these things, you won't find trickle down effect in a developing economy. ठीक है, चलो तो आज की क्लास को फिर यहीं तक रखते हैं. ठीक, नेक्स्ट क्लास जब हम स्टार्ट करेंगे तो हम नेक्स्ट क्लास में देखेंगे कि और क्या पर्सपेक्टिव है डेवलपमेंट का, उसके चैलेंजेस क्या हैं. देन वी टॉक अबाउट द मल्टी डिमेंशनल पॉवर्टी इंडेक्स, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल एंड मिलेनियम डेवलपमेंट गोल. यही दो चीज़ मेन बचा हुआ है. तो इसको हम जितनी जल्दी कवर कर लें और बाकी जो है हमारा जो ये चैलेंजेस हैं या फिर डिफरेंसेस हैं और मतलब एडवांटेज एंड डिसएडवांटेज करके ऐसे कवर कर लेंगे तो 1 घंटे में मोस्टली कवर हो जाएगा वो पार्ट. ठीक है, अगर कल ये 1 घंटे में कवर हो जाता है इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास तो हम क्या करेंगे, जो टेक्निकल डेफिनेशंस हैं ठीक उसमें से किसी एक को उठाएंगे, लाइक कि HDI को उठा लेंगे या मल्टी डिमेंशनल पॉवर्टी को उठा लेंगे, क्योंकि वो ऐसा है कि वो तुम्हें वो है तो तुम्हारे 3rd चैप्टर में, बट वो किसी से रिलेटेड नहीं है. तो तुम समझ जाओगे, जितना उसको रिवाइज करोगे उतना तुम्हें याद होगा और उस पर क्वेश्चन आने के चांसेस भी ज़्यादा है. तो एक बारी मैं तुम्हें करवा दूंगा नेक्स्ट क्लास में, और फिर अगर टाइम परमिट किया तो एंड देन तुम उसको खुद से पढ़ के आ सकते हो और कुछ अगर डाउट होगा तो तुम पूछ सकते हो. ठीक है, ओके, क्लास ऑनलाइन, विल मीट इन द नेक्स्ट क्लास. ओके, थैंक यू.